Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to East Central Missouri and the world, and welcome to the James Strong Show podcast number 276. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making us a part of your day. I appreciate it. This podcast was recorded on the afternoon of Saturday, July the 16th, from the James Strong Studio in Western St. Charles County. Two guests in studio today. This is the second time in about a month I've had two guests in studio, so maybe we're starting a precedent, maybe we're not, I don't know. We have today as guests Pam Struckhoff, who is the executive director, and Donna Tobin, who is the development manager of the Saints Joachim and Ann Care Service. Welcome, ladies, to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I wanted to have you two on. In fact, Pam, I think I've been trying to get you on for quite some time, and just to talk about the Saints Joachim and Ann Care Service, what it's all about, what you do. I've known about it for quite some time because my dear trophy wife works for you folks too, as the what is she, director of finance or something like that?
Yes,
Yeah, exactly. Yes. But you folks do a lot of good for the community. For St. Charles County, Lincoln County, Warren County, correct?
Yes.
The Tri-County area. Tell us a little bit about the care service, how you started, why you started, and what you do. Pam.
Okay, well, Saints Joachim and Care Service was founded 41 years ago. Now,
wow.
We celebrated our 40th anniversary last July. We were founded with 5 people and $500 sitting around a kitchen table, and with the mission of to serve those in crisis and to prevent homelessness and hunger. And at that point in time, Miriam Mahan, who was our first executive director, was, I believe, a school bus driver, and she had become friends with Father Robert Liebrecht, who is the founder of St. Joachim Catholic Church. He had been a missionary in Bolivia and had done a lot of work with the poor in that country. And when he came here, there was some things going on in the area. There were a lot of farmers that were losing their farmland, and Miriam was going to pick them up from the side of their house where they were getting evicted from. And her and him got together and thought, what can we do? And the care service was founded with $500. And we still have that cigar box that the $500 came in.
Really?
Yeah. It sits in my office. So we started with 5, and we are now a staff of 30. With a almost $3.1 million budget, and we are what we consider housers in the area. So we work with people who are in crisis, and crisis can be either they're hungry, they're homeless, they're near homeless, they're literally on the streets, and we work to end that cycle of homelessness or end that cycle of them needing assistance.
And then the question's always been asked of me, well, why would these people come to you? Why don't they, we have welfare, we have housing vouchers. Why is not a care service like you folks have, is it not redundant?
Well, we hear that a lot too. And I think there's a lot of stereotypes that go along when you hear the word homeless or you hear the word in danger of being homeless. And homelessness affects people of all socioeconomic ranges. So we have grandparents who have raised their children who are now raising their grandkids, who they didn't plan to be doing that. We have single mothers who aren't getting child support or who maybe are getting child support, but they have to work 50, 60 hours a week. If they miss work, if they miss one thing, they're behind on their bills. We have people who have just fallen on hard times. Not everybody has the same background or the same, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Social support. So
Yes.
One of the ways I love to explain this when I talk to groups of kids at school is for most of the kids that I'm talking to, if something happens in their family, they have extended family who will step in to help support them.
Sure.
So if
everybody has that, right?
If one of those kids' families, parent gets sick, they don't have enough income, they're going to lose their place to live. They've probably got family members who you can camp out on the couch, sleep down in the basement. Even if they're missing that, most of us have a strong social support, whether it's coworkers, maybe it is church-related, faith communities. Most of us when we think of it, we think we have this network of support. Most of the families who come to us either lack that support, or the support network that they have is just as fragile as what they are. So if my family became homeless, I can go sleep at my parents' house and there would be no problem. It's probably the same. Your kids could come crash here. You might not enjoy having so many people in the house, but it could happen and it would work out and everybody would pitch in together.
Exactly.
Okay, but for our families, if mom has a couple of kids, she misses work because the kids are sick and suddenly she's behind and she loses her place to live. If the kids try to move in with grandma and grandma has a housing voucher or just rents an apartment and the apartment has a limit of how many people you can have in based on bedrooms, well, suddenly they move in with grandma because grandma can't stand the idea of them being on the street. But then grandma also loses her housing because she's broken her lease.
She's violated the terms of her
So
lease.
then we have two families that are homeless instead of just one. And it compounds. So a lot of us don't think in terms of that happening because we know we have that social network to support us. But the families who come to us, a lot of times the care service, we're filling that role for people. We are the people that they have as a backup because they don't have anyone else to do that.
And when you talk about housing vouchers, when you talk about housing vouchers, I don't think Jesus himself could get a housing voucher right now. And even if he could, he wouldn't be able to find a landlord to rent to him. Because housing vouchers pay out a limit. There's a limit of what they can pay, and that's set by the federal government, HUD. So try to find a 3-bedroom unit in this community in St. Charles, Lincoln, or Warren. St. Charles is where most people want to live. The school districts are better, people think, and it's closer to work. It's closer to a lot of things. But you can't find a 3-bedroom unit in St. Charles County for $900. It's not possible.
Well, and let's just say you did. You can't get something like that in 24 hours.
No.
It's a long process.
It is.
And truth be told, these folks don't need a housing voucher. They need maybe $1,000, maybe $2,000 to make up their back rent.
Right.
They're back to work now, and that's what you folks do.
Right. I tell the social workers that the best thing that can happen is we never hear or see these people again. That's when you know that you have made a difference. Is the same name doesn't keep coming up, the same address, the same need for assistance. You've made a difference because you've filled that void for the time, and that's what they needed to get back up on their feet. Housing vouchers there are people who do need them in terms of they're never going to increase their income. People with disabilities, seniors, there's just not a chance for them to increase their income. It's set, but it doesn't. We have people who have housing vouchers right now that we cannot find housing for because it's not there. So, and when you talk about welfare, everybody thinks there's nobody getting rich off welfare. The max is about $250 a child. So think about 250 times 5. That's what, $1,100, $1,200 a month. You can't live on that.
Sure.
You can't, you can't. So what we want to do is we also want to break that cycle. A lot of the people we see are generationally. They've lived in poverty generationally. And what Donna said is right. They don't have that system. They don't know how to do things differently than they were taught. So,
and that's where.
What do you mean by that? They don't know how.
So, a lot of the things that you know on how to raise your family, on how to live your life, you learn from where you live. So I bet your kids grew up having someone read to them in the evening, having someone to do those sorts of things with them to enrich them so that they do better in school. Your kids grew up having someone who knew how to advocate for them at school if something was going on. We have families, so we provide long-term case management for most of our families that are coming in so that we can work with them for an extended period of time to teach them those skills they miss. So they set their own goals to help them reach a point where they're not going to need our help anymore. And some of those goals are things as simple as read a book to my kid at bedtime. Some of them are, I need to spend time with my children or take them to a park or to a library event that will enrich them and they'll learn things from. A lot of our families just don't know those basic things. They don't know how to change the light bulbs in the place they lived because a landlord came in and changed their light bulb. If we have transitional homes, and we can't just move a family into a transitional home and think that we can walk away, because they don't have some of those basic skills of knowing you have to cut the grass, or how to cut the grass, or pick up the toys and the junk that piles up on the side of the house. There's just so many basic things that they weren't taught, and they pass that on to the next generation. When we talk about providing that case management and that training, so we've been doing this 41 years. So those first years, somebody walked up, they said, $400 and I won't lose my place to live. And we said, okay, fine. Make sure everyone who comes to us goes through a lot of paperwork to show us what their financial situation is, so that we know they are people who really are in need of our help.
Let me. Okay,
I'm jumping to something else.
You are, but you made a good point. What the care service is not is, let's say I'm on hard times. I come up to you and say, hey, I'm this, I'm that. I need $2,000. Can you give me $2,000? Are you just going to say, sure, write me a check and send me on my way?
No. The most that would ever happen is someone who calls and is desperate need of food. We'll provide a one-time emergency food rations for them. So several bags of food or whatever's appropriate for their family size, while we set up the appointment for them to come in and give us paperwork that shows what their income is, what their expenses are, a copy of a lease agreement, all of those types of things. And there's two reasons for that. The primary one is we need to make sure, I guess there's three reasons. We need to make sure that the people are in need, that it's not someone who's got a whole bunch of money in the bank, but just doesn't want to spend that money. So they're hoping somebody will give them a handout. We don't want that to happen. A lot of the funding that we receive is from governmental sources, and even the from personal private foundations and things. When someone gives us money, you get write us a donation check. We want to be the best stewards possible of the money that comes into us. So we take a very big responsibility on that, and we want to make sure that we're spending money that people entrust us in the best way possible. But the other reason why it's really important for people to come in and give us all that paperwork can kind of fall down into the fact that someone can call us and say, hey, I don't have any food to feed my kids. Can you help? And rather than just giving them food, we need them to come in and give us that paperwork, because you know what? They'll show up and we find out that in 2 weeks, they're going to be evicted as well. Or maybe their utilities are about to be shut off. That's not as immediate for them. They call because they're out of food.
But that goes back. That goes back to the whole they were never taught, and if you don't know, you can't respond.
And when you get into a crisis situation, your brain actually just starts to function in survival mode, and your brain doesn't allow you to be thinking long term of what's going to happen in 2 weeks. When you get into that big of a crisis, you're actually functioning on a minute by minute. What do I have to do to take care of today's needs?
A story I heard about the care services, there was an individual, and I'm sure this happens, it's happened more than once, where an individual comes in and says, I need help, I want money. And you folks say, okay, well, let's sit down and talk about it. Let's see where you're at, what's going on. And they say, no. I don't want you into my personal business. I want you to give me money. You basically say, look, that's not what we do. Yeah. We do this, we do that. We want to help you, but not just write you a check.
No,
people have gotten angry because
they do.
Yeah, because you will not do that.
Right. Yeah. And we have to, like Donna said, we have to be good stewards of the funding we receive. So when we receive funding, there are expectations. But the other thing is, as a social worker, you're supposed to leave people better off than when you find them. So when you ask somebody for their driver's license and social security card and they say, I don't have it, okay, so what is that a barrier to? That is a barrier to finding income. That is a barrier to getting a lease. That is a barrier to getting a job. So it's also, we do it for those reasons too. We want to remove the barriers that are sometimes self-imposed. Sometimes they're, community imposed. Sometimes they're in their head. But when people make those excuses, well, when we hear it, you have too much paperwork. It's not about the paperwork. We want to make sure that we know what's going on in the home, but we also want to leave people better off than when we found them. And Donna's right. When people operate in crisis mode, and that goes back to generational poverty, they're just trying to survive. Mom is working 50 hours a week. She's not reading because she's trying to survive. That's what they were taught. That's what they were shown as children. So that's how they survive. And, we just have to leave people in a better spot. And that's very important to me. Again, like I said, I would love to never see some people again, because that means we've done our job.
And that happens quite often, I'm thinking.
It does.
Yes.
It does happen. And, we always remember the bad stories. We always remember, and I don't want to call them failures, but, as a social worker, you remember the people who you couldn't help or who you didn't help, or actually who didn't help themselves. It's not about us doing it. I can't do the work for you, but there's barriers that people have that makes them unable to do that work. But we remember the ones that didn't work more than anything. But we have tons that we never hear from again, which is wonderful. That means, and we have very few who come back and say, hey, you did this, but that's just the nature of what we do.
And that's just the nature of people. Because if these are folks who are busy living hand to mouth, being one paycheck away from being homeless, you've helped them out. They're back on the road again. They probably don't have time to stop by for the afternoon and say, "Hey, thanks a whole lot."
Yeah, and that's good.
By never seeing them again, they've said thank you.
Yeah.
So for us, sometimes the hard thing is once people aren't in need of our services anymore, they sort of fade away, and we struggle sometimes being able to show those long-term success stories. But I spoke just right pre-COVID, just the month before COVID shut us down. I was speaking to a networking group. So it was all business owners, professional salespeople in O'Fallon, and group of about 22 people that were there, and just filling them in a little on what was going on at the care service, what kind of things we were doing, how we can help the community and ways that they can help us. Through the entire thing, nobody really threw anything out. I asked if anyone had any questions, had a few questions and things. Afterwards, when the meeting was over, everybody's getting up to leave, I had 3 different people come over waiting in line to talk to me. One of them was because she wanted to thank me. When she was growing up, her family relied on our food pantry for food. And she wouldn't have been where she is now if she hadn't had food to eat. One has a close friend who was is a current client, was a current client at the time, who was getting out of a domestic violence situation and needed help with housing and other assistance. And she was incredibly grateful that we were there to help. And then the third one came up and had been a recipient of ours in the past as well, and now successfully owned his own business. So all 3 of those people are success stories walking around in the community, but none of them are telling their story to other people. Yeah. So those success stories kind of get lost a lot of times, and people don't really realize the impact that we're having in our community, because we're not just changing the lives of the people that we're working with. We're not just giving them new beginnings to move forward with, but we're really having that same impact on our entire community when we're doing the work that we're doing.
Right.
And you have an affiliation with the Archdiocese of St. Louis, but it's a redheaded stepchild type of affiliation. Am I overstepping my bounds?
We do have an affiliation. We're a separate 501c3, so we are not under the Catholic Charities umbrella. We're our own independent organization. Would I say redheaded stepchild? I am pleased with the relationship that we have with the Archdiocese, and I think that's about it.
Okay, you serve a purpose out here.
Yes, we do,
because they really don't have somebody to serve out here. You serve St. Charles, Warren, and Lincoln counties, and for those of you who don't know the area, those are the outlying suburbs from St. Louis. St. Louis City, the St. Louis County, and then there's us. So the East Central Missouri area. So you serve a unique purpose. So hence you have a unique relationship with them.
We do. And when I started at the care service in January 2009, we had Catholic Charities out here, which then transferred to St. Francis Community Center. And then St. Francis closed out here. So they closed their shop out here, and it just became us. So we do serve this area. We are the Catholic identity in St. Charles, Lincoln, and Warren County. We serve anybody. We don't discriminate, and we don't proselytize, because again, we are a 501c3, but we are the Catholic identity in this community. And we're proud of that. We're proud of that identity, and we're proud of what that means, in everything we do. We try to live that. So, but our archdiocese connection is strong, but we do fly under the radar, and I'm okay with that.
A couple of things that you folks do that people don't realize the mechanics that go into providing that service. Donna, you mentioned somebody needs food, you give them food. So you have a food pantry. You have three food pantries, yes. But and think, well, that's wonderful. So you get food from people. Who do you get the food from?
Okay, so
I'm leading up to something here.
I will be happy to tell you where we get the food from, and then I actually want to talk a little bit more about the purposes with our food pantries.
Of course.
So our food comes from a variety of different places. So a lot of people just come up and bring us donations, especially we've put out some information recently where our food pantry is lower than I've seen it in the almost 20 years that I've been involved with the care service.
Is that because of donations are down or needs are up?
Mostly needs are up. Donations have been down a little bit. As I mentioned, we now have 3 food pantries. A year ago, we had just opened our second, so we are serving a larger number of people because we've expanded. But in the past, we would have enough of an abundance that we would get a phone call from a rural food pantry that was out of food, and they could come in and we'd give them a truck full of food to take. We're not in a position to be able to help with that right now. But for us, we do have a lot of community support businesses do collections for us during the school year. Get it from the schools, do collections.
Grocery stores.
Grocery stores. So our truck goes out 5 days a week to local grocery stores and picks up items that are nearing expiration date or slightly damaged.
And that's what I wanted to touch on. And again, I pick up stuff from my dear wife who comes home and talks about her job like everybody does. But you think, well, you folks are a charity, but you need money to run the charity. These grocery stores will give you their older food, but there's a stipulation to that. So you can just come and pick it up whenever you want, right?
No, they kind of have hours. They want us there to pick them up like 6 in the morning.
And it's okay to skip a day here and there, right?
Absolutely not.
No.
Yeah, you've got to be there during certain hours, 7 days a week.
Specifically.
Yeah, exactly. So, which means you have to have a truck to pick that stuff up.
Right.
You have to pay somebody to pick that stuff up. You have to pay gasoline, which I know it's down a bit, but it's still expensive.
It's still very expensive.
So much of the money that goes into running the care service, you think, well, why does it take anything to run the care service? Heck, they give you the food. Okay, to gather the food,
and to keep track of it. I mean, it has to be kept cold. The refrigerated stuff has to be cold. The frozen food items have to be in the freezer. I mean, there's a lot involved with it, keeping the power on in the building.
Yeah, we have to make reports to the people who give us the food, Operation Food Search, Food Bank. We have to do weekly reports. We are now serving about 600 people weekly in our food pantry. You want people who know what they're doing at the top levels of your organization. You want people that can be trusted, that you don't want somebody who just walks in off the street and you can pay him $10 an hour, which minimum wage is now $11.15. You want good people leading your organization.
Sure.
And that costs money. And we do get the food for free. Some of it, we also write tons of grants for food, which we have to record and we have to do the way they want, which is fine. We're very thankful for those grants. But there is an administrative cost to running the care service, and you don't want you want good people in those positions. You want capable people who are there to serve the mission, and not people who just we'll just spend it this way. We don't care. And we do get a lot of people who want to donate to programs, which we're very thankful for. But the care service has to keep its lights on. We have to keep we have to pay our accountant. We have to pay, you want somebody who's got the skills, a CPA. You want those people so you can trust what's coming out, the reporting that's coming out. So we did, like Donna said, we did add 2 more food pantries this year.
Tell me about that.
Well, we opened our Ellsbury food pantry last summer.
For those who aren't aware of the area, where is Ellsbury?
Ellsbury is past Troy. I'm not good with
north of Troy.
Lincoln County.
It's very
Lincoln County.
Yes.
We opened our Ellsbury food pantry in conjunction with the
United Methodist Church in
Ellsbury, and they had a little building up there that they said we could use, and it was in conjunction with Mr. Miller, who's a principal at Ellsbury Middle School. Anyway, we had decided that we knew there was a need up there. We're reaching St. Charles County. We know we've got St. Charles County down, but what are the areas in these other, what in Lincoln and Warren are we missing? We knew we were missing something, and our outreach in Ellsbury had been minimal. So I talked to Mr. Miller. He said, there's a need. I said, okay, there's some needs assessments that I looked at to get there. I didn't just jump there.
Sure.
I had looked at some needs assessments that were done by the Lincoln County Resource Board. So we decided, hey, well, they've got this building. We've wanted to do this for a while. Let's do this. And it has taken off. We see more people in our Ellsbury location weekly than we do in our St. Charles location right now. So we're seeing between 65 and 70 families weekly in Ellsbury. And then I had in 2016, right before Miriam retired, I just made a list of ideas, and one of them was mobile food pantry. I have no idea how I'm going to do this. I have no idea, but we found a donor who was interested in donating the money because we have NAP tax credits. He was interested in donating the money. We said, okay. So now we have a mobile food pantry truck that is out in Warren County and in Lincoln County. We're out 3 days a week. We go to hotels in St. Charles, then we have stops in Lincoln and Warren, it's been very popular. The first day we were in Winfield, which is in Lincoln County, we had 150 cars waiting for us.
Wow.
Now, that has toned down because people thought, I believe, that we were just one of those drop and goes. When people realize, no, this is a program. You're going to have to show your driver's license. You're going to have to do these things. Mm-hmm. The numbers evened out because a lot of people don't want to give you that information, and that's fine. But there's rules for everything in life. So we're now seeing probably, we see, I think 75, 80 families on Fridays. So we're now up to 300 families weekly, which is about 650 people. Mm-hmm. That is a huge number to go from feeding 100 to feeding that many.
It is.
I've never seen the shelves so low.
Well, and a place like Ellsbury, okay, you hear Ellsbury is not the inner city, okay? And the inner city has a problem with what they call the food deserts. Is that the term, where there's really no place to, there's no schnooks up there, okay?
Right.
But much of rural Lincoln County and Warren County have the same thing, don't they?
They do.
Exactly.
They do.
There's really no place to buy food up there.
Walmart is 30 minutes away from Ellsbury, from our pantry. So if you don't have a vehicle, how do you get there? And the other thing is there is an IGA. I believe it's an IGA. I don't know if it is or not. There is a grocery store in the area, but if you look at their prices compared to the store here, they're more expensive. Why? Because they can be.
And they don't have the selection.
Exactly.
And they don't have the fresh produce that other places might have. Sure.
Right. Definitely. Sure. So it has become it's a real issue. So that pantry has taken off to the point of, I think to myself, and people don't like to hear it when I say this, but do we need a bigger building? What do we need? Because our truck is now going up there 3 days a week. That's a lot of gas. It's a lot of wear and tear. What do we need to be able to sustain this? Because this is a tiny space. It works for now, but the need isn't going away.
Sure.
And it just keeps increasing. Mm-hmm. So there's more to come on that. The mobile food pantry, we've had some hiccups with it. It's a truck, and it's a refrigerated truck, so it goes down.
Yeah, and this is not a Ford F-150 truck.
No.
This is a real live, honest to goodness truck with
Yes.
what is it, a refrigerator on top
Yep.
that keeps it cool, and
Yes.
they're expensive to maintain.
Right, they are.
When they break, it's not $100 repair, is it?
No, we're still waiting for a part. For the freezer part, it works, but we're still waiting for a part that we ordered 4 months ago for the vehicle to keep it cooler. And, when it is this hot outside, it is very difficult to keep your frozen food at a certain temperature.
Oh, sure.
On these trucks. So, we have had to close it down recently. I believe last week we had to say once it hit 33, we got to shut it down because we go by the health department guidelines.
Sure.
Where our trucks are inspected, everything is inspected. We don't want to get anybody sick.
Of course.
And, the same with the cold. We don't know what that's going to bring. This is just an idea I had, and I'm really good at having ideas and then not thinking, what is this going to do?
That's why she has the rest of us to put those pieces together.
That's what I do. I thought I wasn't so much like Miriam in ways. I don't spend money like her, although I'm sure my accountant would say different. But I do tend to think a lot bigger picture and then, how are they going to do this? So, yeah.
Well, you're the big picture lady. How's that?
She's our idea person.
Yeah, I try.
And it's up to others to implement.
I try.
With your guidance.
I try.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the good thing about the care service is we have people at the higher levels of management and other levels too that are very dedicated to the mission, that are there for that reason, to advance the mission, and they understand what that means.
Well, and you also have a board.
We do have a board. We do have a board that's involved.
With business leaders who understand what's going on, can advise, tell you, hey, look, if you're going to do this, try doing that. Or the business community has been very involved in the care service.
They have. Donna can speak more to that, I think, because she's been more on the development end. I'm more on the
So
end.
we're blessed both in, as you said, having the business leaders who are there to advise and help support, and then also the financial support that we got from the community business-wise as well. So, for example, a couple of years ago, we had a company approach us that wanted to sponsor our food pantry, and they've continued to do that. So, they just stepped forward and said, we know food is an important piece. Our company is located here in St. Charles County. We want to make sure we're putting our funds here to help our people that are in our area.
So do they give you steady funding, or is this now the Jim's Heating and Cooling food pantry truck?
So, well, the food pantry truck, the mobile food pantry actually has the sponsor that provided the funding for that. So that name is actually on the back of the truck.
Okay.
However, National Cart Company, which is located here in St. Charles County.
In St. Charles, yes.
So National Cart Company is our official food pantry sponsor. So they donate an annual amount to be that sponsor. They have a nice banner in the food pantry. We are going to be having their name on that truck in a smaller piece, and on our truck that goes out to the grocery stores. But we're kind of in the middle of an exciting rebranding project.
Right.
So rather than investing some money of putting something on there when we're going to be redesigning what's already on the trucks,
Right.
we're holding off just a little bit.
A rebranding project. Expand, please.
We have we're 41 years old, and we have our logo is currently maroon. We're changing the colors. We're changing our website. We're changing all kinds of things.
So the key with that is we found an organization to work with that really has helped us define how to express what our mission is and what we're accomplishing in a way that people can understand better. And tied in along with that is what colors help convey that same meaning. that we should be using instead of maroon and cream, which is a great throwback to the 80s. But
Yeah.
a lot of us are a little tired of it, although I
Yeah.
have had 2 people tell me they love that color. And
What's
wanna
the
keep
matter
it.
with the 80s? Some of the best music
Well,
came out
some
of
of
the
the best
80s.
I'm not
Yeah,
going to disagree with you,
but-
but so new colors, new logo design that better represents
Sure.
us,
Yeah.
new messaging, things to just move us forward a little bit.
Right.
And so it's very exciting. I love it because I've been basically begging for it for 20 years. So when Pam told me we were doing this, like, yay, finally.
Yeah,
Yay,
we
it's
found a
exciting.
good company to work with, and they really do get who we are. It's very rare for people, unless they're very heavily involved, to really understand what we do.
Well, but
And they do.
Stop me if I'm wrong. Once you explain to people what you are, what you do, and how you help, people want to help, don't they?
A lot of
Yes.
times they do. I think we do still run into the stereotypical response of pull yourself up. Why can't they pull themselves up by their bootstraps? I did. Not in my backyard. There is a mentality of that.
Expand on that, please.
Well, so we're looking at this housing project, our making room project. And one of the things that, you hear, or when we go to talk to people about the possibility of having a low income housing project in their neighborhood. Well, I don't want that in my backyard. That's going to make my housing values go down, which from what I've read in the studies, that's not true, but people have that in their head, and I do understand that. People pay a lot for their houses. They want to be able to sell them and have that, but we're also pricing out the people who's your barista at Starbucks and who serves you your Chick-fil-A dinner and who works the line at Amazon and you're pricing those people out of the community because they can't live here. Teachers, they can't live here. They teach here, paraprofessionals, the people who deal with the kids in the special education, they cannot afford to live out here. So we're really trying to educate people to get away from that not in my backyard attitude and understand that it costs more to have people be homeless than it does for them to be housed. So it's just a lot of education. Most people very much want to help once they find out the depth of what we do. I think people sometimes believe you're just going to pay the bill and they're just going to come back and they just keep coming back and you support them forever. And that is just not the case. That is absolutely not the case. There comes a point.
That's not your mission.
No, it's not our mission. Again, we want to leave them better off than we found them. But, I've said many times, you have reached the limit of the assistance we can give. There's nothing else that we can help with. If you need food, we'll give you food. But we can't cure everything. We can't, and we really try to do what we do best. And people do want to help when they find out the depth of what we do. You just have to normally get through. Not with all of them. Like we have a very good board who they get it, they get the mission. But when you talk to people who have had hard times, sometimes they are harder to crack because they think,
I did it. Why can't they?
Exactly. And, people have said, well, why don't they pull them up by their bootstraps? And I have told people, well, there's a lot of people who weren't born with boots or shoes. They don't have the access to those things that you do. I mean, I'm very lucky. I have had very supportive parents, would have done anything for me. I lived with them when I didn't have anywhere to go, but I had good shoes.
Well, and as you folks were talking earlier in the podcast, there are some people who just don't understand how things work. And if you don't understand how things work, things break. And your life breaks.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that after so long, you need to change the oil in your car. If somebody doesn't understand that and then they blow up an engine,
Yep.
okay, you can buy them an engine, which is fine. But if you don't teach them that you got to change the oil, you're going to be buying them another engine in a couple of years. And that's what you do. You teach them that they need to change the oil.
Exactly. And even, we have our street outreach program that's out on the streets 3 days a week in St. Charles, Lincoln, and Warren. And we provide basic survival supplies. So there is no place for single men in our community to go if they're homeless. So we're providing tents, food,
sleeping
bags,
bug
bug spray in the summer,
That's
sunscreen.
the other thing. You've talked about the homeless a couple times now. I don't see any homeless around here.
They're very well hidden. This community.
So that's kind of how things are different out here versus in St. Louis. In St. Louis, they want to make tent cities and say, "Here I am." It's not that way out here, is it?
No, it's not. It's absolutely not. They are very well hidden. And we did an exhibit a few years ago called "In Plain Sight" because I know that the reason that came about is I had met a homeless man at the Fast Lane, which is by my house, which I'd say probably 3,000 cars go by.
It's a gas station.
It's a gas station, and it's getting right on 364, so it's a very busy. And I watched one day, it was 100 degrees outside, I watched people go by him and just not say anything to him. They saw him, but they just ignored him. And I approached him. My daughter thought I was crazy, and I took her home, and I took him to a hotel, and he's been housed now for 5 years. But we named it In Plain Sight because he was actually in plain sight, but nobody saw him. They saw him, but they didn't want to look at him. The guys that we work with, and it's mostly men that are on the street that we work with. There are a few women, but it's mostly men. They keep themselves out of sight because they don't want to have any police involvement, and they just want to be left alone most of the times. They do go to, like, the Salvation Army has their soup kitchen. They'll go to lunch there, but they do try to stay out of sight because they just don't want to be labeled as homeless.
And they don't want to draw attention to themselves.
And they don't want to draw attention to exactly. So our street outreach program works with that population.
What does a typical street outreach person do to help a person who's homeless? What a typical day in one of your street outreach people?
Well, one thing about the care service is there's no typical day, but I can let you know. So we, Kirsten, who is our street outreach worker, she knows the spots where people are. So she's able to go there, and we do paperwork with those people too. So we're getting all their information. If we don't get a driver's license or social security card, we'll try to make an appointment to take them to get their driver's license or social security card, which we do. We'll give them food. We'll find out what their needs are. Kirsten will do a service plan with them. So what goals do you want to work on before the next time I see you? Do you want a case manager? We have case managers. Do you want a case manager? Some of them do. Some of them don't. It's up to them. We don't push it. But she is working on building your relationships. A lot of homeless people won't trust you, especially when you want them to sign forms. We get a lot of people who won't sign forms. That's fine. We still give them food. We still give them what they need. But if you want to move further into housing or into case management, this is the time that we're going to need some buyback. So she will go out, and she goes to where she knows they are. She'll give them food. She'll work on paperwork with them, check up on their goals, what they've been doing, what they need, what's been going on, what can we help with. And she probably sees 10 people a day like that. It's just no typical day, but they all have varying degrees of needs. Some of them are ready for case management. And if that's the case, then Kirsten will step back and the case manager will step in. And it's just really trying to rebuild their lives. Most people who are on the streets like that, there's something that happened that put them there.
They weren't always that way.
They weren't always there. And what we heard, we did a forum a few years ago, and I did some research, and about 95% of the people who are homeless on the streets in St. Charles lived here. They grew up here. They didn't come from St. Louis. They didn't come from anywhere else. They grew up. They still have family here. So they belong here. They don't want to move. They don't want to go.
This is home.
The thought of when Kirsten says, "Do you want to go to St. Louis?" They think they literally will say, "No, I don't want to die." They think they're going to get shot, or, there's so many misconceptions about it. And so there is no typical day, but it really is finding those people, building the rapport with them, getting them connected to the services they need, and working on some goals to move them forward.
And each one's unique. I mean, we had one gentleman that we worked with who, he qualified for disability, but he lacked the paperwork that he needed or an address to be able to submit paperwork to get disability. Once we were able to help him get those pieces that he needed and get his application and get that through, he was then able to work with us, and we were able to help him find housing. But in the meantime, his health continued to get worse, because how's your health going to be if you're sleeping in your car through the winter and the summer?
Exactly.
And you can't eat very well if you don't have any way to cook. So sometimes it really is just a matter of helping them put those pieces back together. Or I know I went out one day with Kirsten, and, some of them are working. I mean, people have this misconception that they don't work. They just don't earn enough to get them back in. You know how much it costs to come up with a deposit and a deposit for your utilities, and to find a place that's willing to work with you when they find out, hey, you've just been homeless. That doesn't really sound like a good risk a landlord wants to take.
Sure.
And landlords don't have to take those risks now, because they have the pick of the litter.
Exactly.
They want you to make 3 times the rent.
Yeah, why take the risk if you get 2 people in line to rent your property?
Exactly. And I, when I first started this, I thought, oh, those landlords. But now I understand, I understand more of the dynamic. They're trying to feed their families too. We do have a lot of landlords who will take chances with us. And that's good. We need more of that.
But then you will also brace up the individual who's being housed. In other words, if it's, I'll use round numbers, $1,000 a month for rent, and this person, they can probably pay it most of the time. And you tell them, look, if they fall short, we'll back it up. Now they'll take a risk on this person.
Right, exactly. And we
because they're not going to get hurt financially. Right. And like you said, to be fair, if your typical landlord is not, Daddy Warbucks up in New York who owns 8,000 units.
Right.
It may be mom and pop who own 3 units, and they have to charge $1,000 a month for this thing because they've got a note that they got to pay the bank $800 a month.
And that's who we mostly work with is, management companies are very difficult to work with. They don't bend the rules. But when you can get with mom and pop, and you can, have the person speak to them, have the potential renter or client speak to them, and they find out, hey, a little bit about this person, they're much more willing to work with you. But, we did have landlords that we worked with that lost their properties because their renters weren't paying.
Yeah.
So it's become harder and harder for us to find housing for people because, again, you can't make 3 times the rent, $1,000. Most people working at McDonald's, they're not going to make that.
Right.
So they're on the street. It's a merry-go-round. You just can't get off. And we also work with landlords. When we put together a package, it also includes case management. So they're going to have a social worker in their business. The person who's moving in, the client, is going to have a social worker who's going to walk with them through that journey of us bracing them. It's not just us writing a check. It's, we're going to be meeting with you at least twice a month, and we're going to be going over your goals and what do you want to do and what do you want to do. And then they go into an aftercare program for a year. So the landlord knows they can call us and say, hey, I've got this problem, and what are we going to do? And we work with the landlords and we work with the tenants.
Again, with the goal of ultimately getting you out of the mess.
Exactly. We want to get out of it. So, once somebody's case is closed, they go into our aftercare program. We found that the first 3 months are the most vulnerable. So we call them once every month to see how that's going. And then it goes to 6 months, and then it goes to 12 months. And then we just back out. They know they can call us if they have, but we're trying to not have them spiral again so quickly, to put some braces behind them. But eventually, it's time. We're cutting the cord, and we're hoping to never hear from you again.
Well, your ladies, your organization is truly needed. You've been doing this for 41 years, and the need continues to get greater. But your ultimate goal, as I've heard my dear wife say, is to have people not need you anymore.
Yeah.
But you're not there yet.
No, we're not there yet. We're not. And I've been told by several past executive directors that the poor will always be with us. So,
and truth be told, they always have.
Yeah, that is true.
If somebody did want to help out, what's the best way to get in contact with you, and what's the best way for them to to donate, to help volunteer, to leave you in their will, to do whatever.
Oh, please.
Okay, so two easy options. The easiest option for most people is to visit us online, which is www.jacares.org. We have information there on, you can make just an online donation if that's what you're wanting, something easy. There's a form on there to fill out if you want to contact us and get a little bit more information from us. Or you can also call the main phone number for us, which is 636-441-1302. And depending upon what the area of interest is, if it's making any sort of a donation, learning more about including us in a will, making a stock donation, things like that, extension 300 and any other, there's nice little options. Yeah. I want to volunteer. You can click the button.
I was going to mention that because sometimes, especially retirees, have a little bit of time on their hands. They can volunteer.
So Pam mentioned earlier that we have 30 staff members, but the reality is we could not possibly operate on our 30 staff members. So we have probably close to that same number of volunteers that help in our administrative offices on a weekly basis. In my office alone, I have 2 that come in. One of them comes in every Monday to help me. Another one comes in on Tuesdays and Thursdays to help. Our entire office is running, including intake workers that are working with our clients. And then we also have, I think we're running around 75 volunteers right now that help run our food pantry.
Right.
And then we have other volunteers that come in and help with everything from vacuuming our building and dusting for us to helping with stuff like cleaning windows, helping with some outdoor maintenance, just a wide variety of different things. So anybody who's interested in volunteering, we really do encourage them to reach out to us. And if we don't have an opening at the moment that meets your skill set and interest level, then just wait, because there will be. But we kind of try to be careful with that too. If we've got somebody who really wants to work with data. One of my volunteers, man, she is all about Excel spreadsheets and data, like, how to come up with numbers and things. She's perfect in the role that she is in my office. She would never want to help in the food pantry. So she called and said, we can put you in the food pantry. That would be a really bad fit. We wouldn't want to do that. We'd rather have her wait just a little bit until there's a position open that's a better fit for her needs.
And the food pantry is a huge machine. Yeah. It is a huge machine. It is, even though we're only open for client hours a few days a week, it's Monday through Friday that pantry is working. And it's, we have 2.5 full-time staff members that feed that many people a week. And it is a massive moving machine. And most of it is done by volunteers. And we desperately need, men who are willing to drive the big trucks, the mobile food pantry truck and the big box truck, because we need people who are able to lift things. Because that lifting is a large part of what the volunteers do. So Donna's right, though. We do try to fit people in where they want to be and where they'll be best. And a lot of times, I know in the past people have called and food pantry hasn't been available, but we have new management in food pantry. The old management was great too, but we have new management, and she's very open to having new people step in and help. So Donna gave all the right information.
How about that? I earned my pay today. Yeah. And I'm off the clock, I would imagine.
I know.
jacares.org. Look for the boring maroon and cream logo, right?
Only for a couple more months.
Soon to be changed. So it's going to be an exciting chartreuse and crimson.
No, but you can come to the golf tournament if you really want to see it. And the golf tournament's in September.
September 12th at Bogey Hills Country Club.
Bogey Hills, and
there's a link to that as well to get more information on our website. But we're planning to unveil our new logo at that event. So we're slowly implementing some of the colors and some of the messaging, but that's going to be our big blowout of letting everybody see what it's going to look like.
Yep.
Very good.
We're excited.
What did I miss, ladies? What do you want to leave the listeners with?
The one thing I would like to leave people with is we are in the middle of raising funding for a Making Room, which is a housing campaign, so the care service can purchase our own. We're going to call it workforce or affordable housing for people. We are at $1 million at this point. Our goal is 1.5. This will be housing for people who are only going to pay 30% of their income, which is what's considered affordable. And people ask, what qualifies us for this? We've been in the transitional housing game for 13 years, where we have the properties, we manage them. Somebody else owns them, and we manage them, and we take people from point A to point B. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have some transitional in this program, and we're looking to buy 12 to 15 units of affordable housing. You got to start somewhere. I know people say 12 to 15, that's not a lot, but considering that we have had no low-income housing go into St. Charles in the past, I'd say 10 years, we're looking to do something. We have to start somewhere. And so we've raised $1 million. We've had one very generous donor who gave us $500,000 and another who gave us $300,000. So if there's anybody who is interested in housing and taking people off the streets and giving them a safe and secure place to live, they should reach out to Extension 300 at the Care Service, and we can tell them more about what we're doing.
There's also more information about that on the website as well. And a really cool thing, if you donate $40 or more, you got to write a note to one of our clients who will be moving into those new units, as well as providing a keychain for them that says your key to a new beginning. So
Very
we
cool.
take care of doing that as well. So no donation is too small. None is obviously too big. We are always happy.
We are always,
as well.
yeah.
But
I will take $1 million if somebody wants to give it
but
to
the
us.
truth is, we have always been more of a grassroots organization, and we have always relied on a lot of small donations from a lot of people to keep us going, and we're incredibly grateful for that.
Yes, we are blessed.
Very good. And I'm grateful for you ladies taking time out of your busy day.
Thank you.
And
Thank
being
you
on the
very much.
podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
That's Pam Struckhoff, Donna Tobin from the St. Joachim and Ann Care Service. That's it. We're done. JamesStrongShow@hotmail.com. That's the email address. Send me your email address, and I will send you a link to the podcast. You can download it upon publication and listen to it at your leisure, or pick it up wherever you pick up your other podcasts. That's it. We're done. Until next time, this is James Strong saying adios.